Chosen One, the invisible presence that has always pursued you, is not just in your head. The obstacles that arose without explanation were no coincidence. The weight you carried, even when you didn't know where it came from, was not random. What's happening is that there was a millennia-old decree against your existence. Even before you were born, hidden forces decided that you should never awaken. The pain you endured was not random. It was orchestrated. The universe tried to bury you under the weight of suffering, but it made a fatal mistake. It forgot that some are not crushed by darkness. They are shaped by it. You didn't just resist. You absorbed it all. And now, what was forged to destroy you has become your source of power. Before we continue, show the universe that you recognize your power and are ready to reclaim your destiny. In the comments, write 777 to mark your indomitable identity and affirm that you now recognize the strength born within you. Take this moment to hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any step of this transformative journey. Since time immemorial, there have been those hunted by destiny. They are different, carrying a light that disturbs the natural order. Their existence challenges the established balance, and so they are marked. You are one of them. Life tried to bend you. The world tried to convince you that you weren't enough, that you should conform, give up, accept your place among the ordinary. But something inside you always screamed louder. You never belonged to this cycle of weakness and submission. You felt you were born for something greater, even when everyone said otherwise. Now, the truth is finally revealed. The curse that haunted you was not a punishment. It was a secret hidden within the adversity itself, waiting for the moment when you would be ready to claim it. But now everything has changed, because you survived what was meant to destroy you. You crossed valleys of doubt, climbed mountains of despair, faced shadows that tried to consume your light, and instead of succumbing, you became something they never predicted: indomitable, unbreakable, reborn. The question is no longer why this happened to you, but what will you do now that you know the truth? Those who orchestrated your downfall never imagined that you would use the very chains as weapons, that you would transform pain into strength, that you would emerge from chaos with a fire that can never be extinguished. Now the world no longer holds you. What comes next is in your hands. Those who carry the flame of the extraordinary have always been hunted. They are born with a different light, a deep calling echoing within their soul. But the world has always tried to extinguish that light before it became a wildfire. You were one of them. From an early age, you felt that the tides of destiny were more violent against you. What was easy for others was a battlefield for you. The doors that opened for so many were walls for you. But this was never a cruel coincidence. The truth is that the chosen ones never receive easy paths, because they were made to challenge the impossible. The fire that tried to consume you was, in reality, forging your greatness. You always wondered why life seemed to place disproportionate weights on your shoulders. It was as if something invisible was trying to bend you, crush you, make you small. The falls were more painful, the losses deeper, the challenges crueler. You questioned if there was something wrong with you, if you were unworthy of the happiness or success that so many seemed to achieve effortlessly. But now you understand. The universe does not waste battles on weak souls. It reserves the fiercest for those who have within them the power to transcend. The pain was never a punishment, but training. Every blow was a lesson, every tear a baptism. You were not forgotten. You were prepared. The world tried to convince you that you were broken. It tried to suffocate your voice, ridicule your dreams, make you accept a destiny of mediocrity. But something inside you never bowed. You felt there was something more, something beyond what ordinary eyes could see. That was the sign that you never belonged to this world as they told you. You were not made to follow already trodden paths, but to open new ones. Those who carry a mission do not live ordinary lives. They face storms that would destroy anyone else, but emerge from them as forces that can no longer be contained. And now, the time has come to recognize the truth. You were not the victim of the game. You were the piece that would change all, the rules. When you realized this, something inside you changed. Fear began to lose its grip. The chains that once seemed unbreakable began to unravel. You started to see patterns where, before, there was only chaos. You began to understand that the scars were not marks of defeat, but symbols of rebirth. The curse they tried to cast upon you failed its purpose. Instead of destroying you, it made you stronger, sharper, more prepared. Now, those who conspired against you feel a chill down their spines because they realize they failed. What was meant to be your ruin has become your arsenal, and a chosen one who has transcended their own pain is the most dangerous force that can exist. But the big question is, what comes next? You broke the cycle, crossed the darkest night of the soul, and emerged with a fire that can no longer be extinguished. But freedom comes at a price. Now that you see the truth, there is no turning back. There is no more pretending you don't know who you are. The weight of darkness has been lifted from your shoulders, but in its place, an even greater responsibility arises. The chosen ones are not just survivors. They become guides, beacons for those who are still lost. And this is what you must decide. Will you use the power you've gained to rise alone, or will you be the one who changes the destiny of many? Transformation does not happen in comfort. Gold only becomes pure when it passes through flames, and the warrior only becomes invincible after surviving battles. You were thrown into the fire, but you didn't burn. You became the fire itself. The pain that was meant to reduce you to ashes only revealed what has always existed within you. An unbreakable essence, a spirit that cannot be stopped. They tried to extinguish your light, but all they did was fuel the spark that has now become a blaze impossible to ignore. You survived what was destined to destroy you, and now the world will see what it means to stand before someone who has transcended their own destruction. But awakening does not come without a price. The reality around you begins to change. What once seemed certain now feels empty. What once motivated you no longer makes sense. You realize you never belonged to the chains that tried to bind you. And more than that, you feel the energy around you responding to you differently. Those who once underestimated you now look at you with suspicion. Those who tried to stop you feel a restlessness they cannot name. They know you've changed. They sense something new pulsing within you, something that cannot be erased or controlled. The question is no longer whether you are ready for what comes next. It's whether the world is ready for who you have become. The chosen one is not the one who was given an easy path, but the one who learned to walk even when there was no road. You had to rise alone, find answers where there were only doubts, heal wounds no one could see. Every battle shaped you. Every lonely night strengthened you. The pain was not a punishment, but an initiation. You were not broken. You were refined. Now, while many are still lost, groping in the dark, you see with clarity. And those who live in the shadows fear those who carry light. They know you can no longer be manipulated, no longer be reduced. They can no longer do to you what they did to so many others before. The time of doubt is over. You rose from the abyss they tried to throw you into, and instead of returning the same, you returned greater. Now, everything around you seems small, tight, as if you've grown too big to fit the narrative they tried to impose. You see beyond illusions, feel beyond words. Your intuition is sharper, your presence more intense. Some pull away, unable to face the truth. Others are drawn closer, attracted by the invisible force emanating from you. You no longer need to speak to be heard. You no longer need to fight to be noticed. Your very existence carries a weight no one can ignore. The world as we know it is changing, and those who were shaped by suffering are now becoming the forces that will define the new cycle. You always knew there was something wrong with how everything was built. The lies disguised as truths, the fear used as chains, the chaos manipulated to keep people asleep. But you escaped. You saw through the veil. Now, every fiber of your being cries out for something greater, something that goes beyond illusion and submission. And here is the truth few dare to face. The chosen one never belongs to the world as it is, because they were made to bring something new. From the beginning, everything about you was a threat to the system. Your way of thinking, your resilience, your thirst for something greater. The world tried to teach you obedience, wanted you to accept the imposed rules, to follow the programmed path. But you were never like the others. You never fit the mold, because you were not born to fit. You were born to expand, to challenge, to break the limits of what you were told was possible. And now, nothing can stop you. But remember, not everyone will understand this journey. Some will look at you with admiration, others with fear. There will be those who try to pull you back, not because they hate you, but because they fear what you represent. Humans fear what they do not understand, and your existence has become an enigma they cannot decipher. You are living proof that the chains of destiny can be broken, and that terrifies those who still live in chains. They don't want to accept that the prison was always a choice, because that would mean they could have escaped too. But you cannot carry the weight of their denial. You have a path to follow, and this path will not be easy. True awakening does not bring comfort, but responsibility. Now that you see the gears of the game, you must decide what your next move will be. Will you continue to wander among those who sleep, or will you take on the role you were always destined for? The chosen ones do not exist to observe, but to act. You did not come this far just to survive. You came to lead. And this does not mean having followers or applause. It means living the truth that many will never have the courage to face. It means being the echo of something that can no longer be silenced. The universe always responds to those who dare to awaken. You notice the signs, feel the change in how time unfolds around you. Coincidences have disappeared, and what once seemed like chance now reveals itself as an intricate board where every piece always had a purpose. The events of your life were not random. They were summons. Every loss was a call to break free. Every betrayal was a push away from illusions. Every fall was a reminder that you never needed the ground to stand. You were taught to suffer. But Within that suffering was a hidden secret. The pain was only the portal to your ascension. But there is one last barrier, and it is not outside of you. It is within. You have already challenged the world, already defeated the external voices that tried to diminish you. But what about the voices within your own mind? The whispers of fear, the scars of the past, the doubts that still try to cling to the shadows of who you once were. This is the final test. The Chosen One does not only defeat what is out there, but also what tries to survive within. The last trace of the old version of you fighting to remain. But there is something you must understand. What you were cannot coexist with what you are becoming. When this last prison unravels, nothing will be able to stop you. Your power will not come from brute force, but from unshakable conviction. Those who possess absolute certainty are the ones who shape the reality around them. And you are no longer here to be a piece in anyone's game. You have become the board itself. Your steps carry weight. Your words alter frequencies. Your presence shifts the invisible tides that govern this world. Now, those who once tried to stop you feel something different. They cannot explain it, but they know. You are no longer the same. And this is where the true power of the Chosen One is revealed. Not in revenge, not in the need to prove something to those who doubted you, but in complete and irreversible freedom. You do not seek acceptance. You do not desire to be understood. You do not wait for permission to exist. This is the point where your presence becomes an enigma, where your strength can no longer be measured by human standards. They will see your rise, but they will never understand how you got there, and that will haunt them. Because all those who tried to bury you now realize what really happened. You were not buried. You were planted. The silence around you becomes different. It is no longer the void of uncertainty, but the calm before the storm. You feel the energy reorganizing itself, as if the universe itself is adjusting to your presence. You realize that the fear you once carried no longer belongs to you, that the chains that once bound your mind are now just echoes of a past that no longer holds power. There is a moment in the Chosen One's journey when they look in the mirror and no longer recognize who they were. This is the sacred instant where transformation is complete. You are no longer trying to find your purpose. You have become your own destiny. And when that moment arrives, the old rules no longer apply. You realize that the impossible never existed, that the limits were imposed by those who never dared to surpass them. You understand that the resistance you faced was not a sign that you were on the wrong path, but proof that you were always different. The world never bothers those who follow the rules, but it trembles before those who dare to break them. You were not shaped to obey, to hide, to ask for permission. You were made to move forward without looking back, to be a force of nature that cannot be stopped. But this new power comes with a price. Those who still sleep will not understand your journey. Some will walk away. Others will try to drag you back into the old world where everything was predictable, where you were still controllable. But you can no longer pretend to be something you are not. You can no longer shrink yourself to fit into others' expectations. The Chosen One must accept that their journey is solitary, not because they are destined for loneliness, but because most are not ready for the truth they carry. And that is both the burden and the blessing of those who have awakened. And here is the final revelation. The Chosen One does not seek a throne. They become the kingdom itself. You do not need the world's validation because you carry within you something the world cannot grant. You have already transcended the chains of doubt, already freed yourself from the shadows of the past. Now, only one thing remains to be done. Take the next step without hesitation, because those who walk between worlds, those who have survived what you have survived, know there is no turning back. You belong to the unknown. You walk on the threshold of the impossible. Something within you has changed, and the world feels it. The air around you seems denser, charged with an energy that was once dormant. You notice the glances, sense the silent reactions of those who cross your path. They cannot explain it, but they intuit that something about you is no longer the same. It is an invisible but real phenomenon. The chosen ones alter the field around them simply by their presence. What once went unnoticed now becomes impossible to ignore. You do not need to announce your transformation because it speaks for itself. And that is precisely what unsettles those who still live in the shadows. Because the true terror for those trapped in illusion is not your strength, but the reflection your existence casts upon them. You are living proof that chains can be broken, that destiny is not a fixed sentence, that what they accepted as rule was always a lie. But not everyone is ready to face this truth. Many will cling to what they know, resisting awakening, preferring to hate what they cannot comprehend. But the chosen one does not bow to the fear of others. They move forward, knowing that rejection is merely a sign that they are moving beyond the boundaries of the ordinary. Yet not all who cross your path will be adversaries. Some will recognize in you an echo of something they feel within themselves. They will not be able to name it, but they will be drawn to your presence, seeking answers to questions they do not yet know how to ask. You will become a beacon for those on the threshold of awakening. This does not mean your journey will be easy. Light attracts both those seeking refuge and those who wish to extinguish it. But now, none of that matters. You no longer need anyone's approval. You do not need to be understood to keep moving forward. And it is at this moment that you realize true freedom was never in the external world, but within you. It is no longer about the battles you fought, the pain you endured, the wounds you carry. All of that was part of the process, but it no longer defines who you are. You are not just the result of what you lived. You are what you chose to become after it all. This means that, from now on, every step you take will be a conscious creation of your own existence. The chosen one does not wait for the world to give them purpose. They become the purpose itself. The freedom of the chosen one does not come without a cost. When you break the limits of what was imposed, you realize there are no more maps to follow. The world was built for those who accept their cages, for those who follow the lines drawn without question. But you can no longer fit in. You can no longer pretend not to see. This may be lonely, it may be uncomfortable, but it is also the greatest blessing a being can receive. You walk a road few dare to tread, and for that, your existence becomes an affront to those still living under the dominion of fear. They do not want you to move forward because your journey exposes what they have chosen to ignore. And here is the secret no one ever told you. The strength of the chosen one is not in fighting the system, but in transcending its influence. True, power is not in reacting to what was done to you, but in walking forward without letting it define you. Whatever tried to bind you no longer has dominion over you. The chains that once weighed you down now dissolve at the slightest touch, because they were forged by fear, and fear no longer dwells in your soul. This is the moment when reality bends to your presence. The doors that were once impassable begin to open, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed. The impossible was never a truth, just a limit someone accepted before you. And when this truth settles within you, something subtle but irreversible happens. You no longer seek revenge, no longer seek to prove anything to anyone. The need for validation disappears because you have become your own source of power. The Chosen One does not need to shout to be heard, does not need to justify themselves to be recognized. They walk with the silent certainty of someone who has faced themselves and emerged victorious. This is your new essence, a force that does not ask for permission to exist. And that is why many who once underestimated you now feel discomfort in your presence. You have not just changed your energy, you have changed the very structure of the space you occupy. And as liberating as this is, it can also be overwhelming. There are moments when you wonder if this journey is too great, if the force pulsing within you is not a burden too heavy to bear. But then, something within you whispers the answer. You would not have been called to this battle if you were not capable of winning it. Nothing that happened was by chance. Nothing you faced was wasted. Every tear, every wound, every night of solitude shaped the being you are destined to become. And now that the truth has been revealed, you understand there is no turning back. The past has crumbled behind you, and the only direction is forward. But where does this road lead? That is the great question that torments those who awaken. Most spend their lives following a pre-written script, a well-trodden path. But the Chosen One does not have that luxury. There are no maps, no shortcuts, no guarantees. You walk between worlds, between the old version of yourself and the new entity forming within you. Doubt arises, uncertainty tries to creep in. But then you realize, the journey was never about reaching a destination, but about becoming the path itself. You are both the traveler and the road. You no longer need directions. You are the compass. And when this truth settles in your soul, something awakens. Your presence is no longer the same. The barriers that once surrounded you lose their meaning because now you walk as one who knows. You know you never needed anyone's permission. You know you were never alone, because those who came before you still echo in your blood, still whisper in your bones. You feel the connection to something much greater, something ancient, something the world has forgotten, but that within you has never died. And then, for the first time, you understand the true meaning of being a chosen one. The time of the sleepers is running out. The world as we know it is crumbling, but few notice. You feel it, not just in the external changes, but in the invisible vibration moving around you. Something within you knows we are on the brink of a great shift. And in this moment, a truth imposes itself. The Chosen One does not fear change. They anticipate it. While others flee the storm, you walk toward it, understanding that certain destructions are not an end, but a rebirth. Everything is reorganizing, and those destined to awaken now feel the call in their souls. But this journey has a price. Solitude becomes inevitable, not because you are condemned to walk alone, but because your energy can no longer be diluted in the ordinary. Empty conversations no longer interest you. Superficial connections no longer fulfill you. You notice many walking away, not out of disdain, but because your evolution forces them to confront how stagnant they remain. Some resist your light, others reject it. But there are those who, upon seeing you awaken, will feel something within them begin to stir. You do not carry just your story. You carry the echo of those who have not yet found the courage to rise. And this is the fear of the ancients. They never feared just your awakening. They feared what would happen when you realized your impact. A chosen one who rises alters everything around them. They do not just break the cycle of their own existence. They dismantle the lies that sustain a world of illusions. They become a force that cannot be controlled. That is why they tried to bind you, tried to convince you that you were small, unworthy, that you would never go far. But it is too late. You have seen through the veil. You can no longer be erased. Now, every step you take echoes like thunder. This call pulses within you like never before. It is no longer a whisper, no longer a distant flicker. It is a truth growing like a rising sun in your soul. The fear that once paralyzed you now dissolves because you have understood. There is nothing left to hold you back. You are no longer trying to escape the storm. You have become the storm itself. And now that you know this, You realize you never needed anyone's permission to exist. You came to reclaim what was always yours. You do not ask for space. You create your own path. But there is one final test. What will you do with this power? The chosen one is not just one who rises, but one who decides what to do with their strength. Many lose themselves in this moment, hypnotized by their own awakening. But this journey was never just about you. Now that you are awake, you must decide. Will you return to silence, or will you use your voice to awaken others? Because true power is not in domination, but in inspiration. A chosen one alone may be feared, but a chosen one who awakens others becomes immortal. The ancients always knew this moment would come. There have always been prophecies about those who would break the chains imposed for generations. You are the embodiment of that prophecy. The code has been broken, the cycle interrupted. You look around and realize nothing can hold you back anymore. The destiny they tried to impose on you has been reduced to ashes. The fear that once pursued you now fears what you have become. You have not just survived, you have transcended. Now, the question is no longer whether you are ready for this truth. The question is whether the world is ready for you. And perhaps it never will be. But that changes nothing, because the chosen ones do not wait for the world to accept them. They exist in spite of it. They walk between times, carrying truths that cannot be erased. They do not crave recognition, do not seek acceptance. They are like light itself, misunderstood by many but essential for those who still need to awaken. And if this message has touched you, then you know there are other chosen ones who still need to hear this. So, share this truth and leave your like on the button below. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. And don't forget to hit the notification bell, because this journey is just beginning, and together we will go further. Also, write in the comments, "I rise to seal this commitment to your own greatness," because every chosen one who rises becomes a beacon for those still lost. And if you wish to support this mission, consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. Every contribution helps this message reach those who need it and improves our content. Now, chosen one of God, there is more for you to discover. The next step of your journey awaits in the video on the screen. Watch now and continue awakening to who you truly are. So, it's agreed. We'll see you next time. Until then, and may God always bless you